Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I don't like wearing a tie, so I don't wear one most days unless I think we're doing something important. But today I wore a tie and my Kansas socks. Would the carrier stand for a few questions? One thing that struck me was that the committee process in this committee was a little bit different than what we see in normal committees. Normally we see a bill, we have a proponent, opponents, neutral, then we go through bill by bill. This committee is a little bit different. It was kind of an open-ended testimony period on any and all bills, not specifically on bills. Would you say that assessment's accurate?
Thank you, Representative. Actually, we opened all 4 of them. We did have an extended period, and it's actually, we've received testimony all through since the fall about different ideas and thoughts. And then I kept it open, opening all 4, and we had comments that were associated with all 4 of them. Many comments they were able to comment on all different ones at the same time. So we did do that. We did have them all open, and we did have hearings and testimony.
But the central point is we were essentially hearing 4 bills at once and taking testimony on all 4 bills at one time.
Representative, that is, I mean, we were doing that so we could maximize the public's input. We didn't want to waste their time. They came up here, they committed this process, and we wanted to make sure we could hear from everybody in this process.
Thank you for that. As part of our committee conversations, did we have a discussion or do anything to define the various communities of interest? We have in our rules kind of something that lays out that we should not, that there should be a recognition of communities of interest, social, cultural, racial, ethnic, and economic. But as a committee, did we have a conversation about that? And did we attempt to define those as we move forward with our decisions?
So the definitions were set by the advisory committee. We did adopt the guidelines that came out of the advisory committee. And as you know, you were on the committee as we talked about various things. So that's what we used for that process.
Thank you. Did the committee in any of its conversations or any of our discussion look at maps or data points that showed committee members ethnic communities of interest so that we'd be aware of that as we made our decision?
And thank you for the question. And for everybody, research took every map that came in, did a technical review, and then published on their website. And we did show the committee all that information that was available. Several times, actually, so you'd know where you could go find that. So that's where you could find it.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. What I hear is that the information was available. My question is, did we have that conversation in committee with that information, or did we try to pull in any of that information in our decision-making process?
If I remember correctly, in the committee, you did mention some things about it. You asked some questions of research, and they answered your questions while we were in the committee, and again, had the opportunity for the research department to show you where that data is for you and for everybody else, and so, thank you.
Okay, and I apologize for all the questions, but this is, I think, important information for the body to have a firm grasp on. Did we have another rule that talks about Rule 3, that it will have, that redistricting will have neither the purpose nor the effect, meaning it doesn't have to be intentional, of diluting minority voting strength. Did we have that discussion in committee? Did we attempt to define what it would mean to dilute minority voting strength.
Representative, again, you being part of the committee, if there was something you thought we should have, then by all means, there was that opportunity for you to bring that up.
I often defer to the wisdom of the chair. Did we, in our conversations in committee, aside from the points that I raised, have a conversation about compactness and how that was going to play into our determination on these maps?
So you caveated that in addition to what, I mean, you brought that up, there was the discussion, and again, research provided you that information and showed everybody else where that information was available. So you could see it on all the maps and everything that's turned in. So even the maps that have been turned in since then have that information to you. You don't have to wait for the discussion. You could see it for yourselves. It's available for everybody in the public.
I promise the question and portion of this episode is almost over. In committee, did we have any discussion on, as a committee, well, let me back up. I said this in committee and I'll say it here. The process of drawing a map like this is difficult. There are many, many layers to it, and you have potentially competing interests. But did we have a discussion in committee about how we would navigate those competing interests, whether we would put economic interest above geographic interest? Did we have that discussion on how to layer those potentially competing interests in committee?
Again, that's what we had the discussion about. The opportunity was there for you to bring that up and talk about those things that were important to you.
Well, you'll be glad to know that's all the questions I have. I do want to make a statement before I move on. The committee process, and this is my first one, so maybe this is the normal way, but I'm not sure. But basically, it was quite a bit different than what we normally see. So the discussion, we heard testimony from people, and committee members were basically instructed to withhold questions so that we could just accept the testimony. That's fair. We're trying to maximize time. The discussion portion of the committee was only when we were debating a bill. And we were only debating one bill. There were 6 bills available to us in that committee. We had a discussion on one bill, and it was on that specific bill. There was not the sort of normal committee discussion that you normally have. I'm not going to get into some of the things that have already been mentioned. I do think there's always more than one way to skin a deer. But there's always a best way. I have an amendment.
I have an amendment. It appears long. Do you wish to explain your amendment? Representative, do you wish to explain your amendment?
I have a map with the outstanding name of Prairie Dog. I think they'll have some maps available, but we've been paying so much attention to the northeast portion of the state, I thought that I'd turn my attention to the southwest portion of the state. I'll save some of the details for my closing, but basically, what I've done in this map is elevate, because we didn't determine what our primary driver was when we draw these maps. For this one, I decided to elevate the Hispanic population in southwest Kansas. If you look at the numbers for Dodge City, Garden City, and Liberal Kansas, it's about 47% Hispanic, This raises it, I believe, 8 or 9%, and brings the voting, or brings the Hispanic population in this district up to 21%.
Thank you. Members, there is a copy of the map by the clerks. The chair will stand at ease rather than have the clerk read the bill. There is no objection to the reading, waiving of the reading of the amendment. Representative Prost, you may further explain your bill.
Well, like I said, I'm focused more on Southwest Kansas. Basically, we've made the second district pretty compact, and I think it falls largely within the lines that already existed. We've kept the metro area together, as has been requested by testimony from many, many people. Where we've really been creative, I mean, I'll admit Ad Astra is pretty creative too, but I didn't want you to be the only ones to do that. District 4, instead of staying contained in central Kansas, loops out to western Kansas and pulls in some of those rural communities, Ford County, Finney County, Meade County. And I thought it would be interesting to look at a map that elevated the issue of Hispanic representation in the state. We have a growing population out here. I don't know if any of you heard some of the testimony from a few years ago, but these counties out here without immigration would have seen population declines. So I thought it would be interesting to look at a map that considered that area of the state, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak to the amendment? Chair recognizes Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be a no, yeah, sure would. You know, it doesn't matter whether a Republican or a Democrat offers a bad map. Doesn't matter whether they're the leader, the assistant leader, or the water boy. It's a bad map. It's a bad map for somebody who lives in Liberal, too, because it pours 500,000 votes, roughly, from Sedgwick County into a predominantly rural district. And not only would this potentially be bad for the incumbent in the first district, he may be up far enough north that he'd avoid the knife on this one, but it really doesn't make any sense to put Elkhart and Wichita in the same district and think there's some community of interest. I can't see it anywhere, but appreciate the effort, Representative. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative, for the brief statement. Chair now recognizes Representative Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I rarely find myself voting exactly like the prior speaker, but in this case, I oppose this map. We've got a long history of being in the big first. We've got lots of shared interest with those in Northwest and the agricultural counties in central Kansas. I don't think this does anything for us, and I agree with the previous speaker. I'm opposed to it.
Thank you, Representative. Chair recognizes Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Body, I'm going to ask you to also oppose this. In my recollection, I don't know the last time the 4th District ever stretched out west. As much as I love my friend from Liberal, him and I have absolutely nothing in common as far as communities of interest. We make airplanes in Wichita, and they make wheat or ag in western Kansas. So again, I'll ask you to oppose this. But thank you to my friend from Hutch for bringing this great idea to us.
Thank you, Representative. The chair now recognizes Representative Esau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I applaud the maker of this motion for the creativity that is here, it is definitely unique for many of these folks to be in the same district. There's some counties, no, I just can't. But for those who haven't seen the map, it splits Johnson County again. So even if it met all my other criteria, I'm afraid I have to be a no on this one as well.
Thank you. Anyone else wishes to speak to the amendment? Seeing none, Representative Hoheisel, sorry. Representative Probst, you may close on your amendment.
All right. I'm glad I could provide you all with a little comic relief here towards the end of the day, I hope. I want to be clear. I introduced this map largely to make a point. Several points. We can draw a map any way we want, and we can use any dynamic in drawing that map, but we never defined it. I look at the Ad Astra map, I see that in District 1, it reduces the African-American population by 0.4%. District 2 goes up by 4%. District 3 goes down by 3.2%. And District 4 is pretty flat. And the Hispanic vote goes down 1.6% in District 1, up 5.6% in District 2, down 4% in District 3, and is flat in District 4. When we look at Prairie Dog, it's pretty flat. The African American vote goes down in District 1 by 0.1%. It's flat in District 2. It goes up by 0.5% in District 3 and up by 0.1 in District 4. The Hispanic vote goes down by 9.6% in District 1, up by 1% in District 2, down by 0.5% in District 3, and up by 8.1% in District 4, bringing the total Hispanic population to 21.6%. More representative of an area that has 47% Hispanics. I'm not saying that the Prairie Dog map is what we should do. What I am saying is that we did not define any of these variables in committee. We did not talk at all about how we were going to make this decision. And more importantly, we did not define what diluting voting strength means. And perhaps most importantly, we didn't ask the affected populations what that meant to them and how they defined it. So we failed on that front. And we haven't proven the rule that we would not have the purpose or effect of diluting minority voting strength because we didn't ask. There's another issue that I want to talk about regarding another rule in our committee. It's the rule on compactness. It says we will draw the districts as compact as possible and contiguous. I brought this up in committee. We've had 10 maps between the House and the Senate that have been introduced. There's a scale that's in the technical information on each of these maps. It's like the REOC scale. 0 to 1, 1 being the most compact. So a number closer to 1 is more compact. This is in our rules. The blue stem map is 0.52, Buffalo is 0.51, Prairie Dog's 0.45, Meadowlark 5 is 0.45, United is 0.44, Sunflower 3 is 0.43, Mushroom Rock is 0.39, Ad Astra is 0.39, Meadowlark is 0.38. We have chosen the second least compact map of all the options available to us. That's in our rules. It was mentioned earlier that we should be okay with Ad Astra 2. We should accept it because we followed the process. I would argue that we didn't follow our own process. We didn't follow our own rules. We've heard a lot about math and the importance of math. This is just a math problem we're trying to solve. That's true. It is a math problem. But there's a lot of missing information that we need to do this, to solve this equation. And we didn't define any of the variables that we were going to consider. We just put a map out, let some other people put maps out, and then in 5 days, I'm gonna look through my notes. I think this was introduced on the 20th, and according to the website, and today is the 25th. So that, I know there were hearings, I know all of that, but the maps and the discussion and how we were gonna make this decision, that wasn't part of the conversation. I think it's important, this is a political process, we can all acknowledge that. But we wrote rules for ourselves, then we didn't follow them, and we didn't define them, and we actively violated them. And I'm gonna tell you, when you look out in the world and you say, it's fallen apart, people don't have any sense of values or morals or fairness, it starts right here. It starts in this building. What we do, the tone we set, the way we use or abuse our power tells the public that it's okay, that not only is it okay, it's expected, and a win-all-cost mentality is what you do. We reap what we sow.